see, like, yeah, I don't mess with any of that stuff. Maybe I will, but I just close stuff. All right, soft tissue trauma.
This is chapter 30?
This is chapter 30, yeah. Let me make sure what they're recording. All right, so soft tissue trauma, that's pretty much everything that is not bone, cartilage, teeth, and nails. Everything else is soft tissue. And this is a list of everything. So your skin, how many layers of skin do you guys have?
3.
3. What is the very top portion called?
Epidermis.
Epidermis was below that?
Epidermis.
And then below that? Which technically would be the fatty tissue part of it. Then you have the muscles underneath that. Blood vessels, what are my 3 different kinds of blood vessels? Vessels. You have your arteries?
Oh,
Veins,
okay.
arteries,
Capillaries.
Okay, arteries, veins, capillaries, good. Arteries, what is their job?
Away from heart.
What is the job of the capillaries?
Gas exchange.
Gas exchange. In the veins?
bringing blood back to the heart.
Cool. Which is the only artery that has high concentration of carbon dioxide?
Pulmonary.
Good. Connective tissue, membranes. We talked about these. Every single organ in your body is like a mini human. It has its own membrane, skin, glands, and your nerves. So soft tissue, and then this gives you your whole visual of everything. Major function of the skin, protection. So it protects you from the outside environment. That way nothing can go inside of you and kill you. Okay. Water balance. How does that work? Water balance.
Water keeps water from coming in.
And you also sweat out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Temperature regulation, that is done in 2 ways. What is one of the ways that your body will regulate itself? The skin will help regulate your temperature. What is one way? Sweating is one way, right? You're gonna sweat out and then evaporation takes the heat away. What is the other way?
Vasoconstriction.
Okay, vasoconstriction. What about when I am too hot?
It does both.
Vasodilation, right? So every time you guys get red, that's because if you're exerting yourself, your vessels are dilating to radiate more heat away from your body. Excretion, sweat, and shock impact, that is for whenever Mia gets mad at Manuel, hits him with a baseball bat in the stomach. That baseball bat is not going to hit his liver, it's gonna hit his skin, it's gonna absorb that, so it doesn't cause as much damage as it would.
It's good to be bariatric.
What's up?
That's when it's good to be bariatric.
Yes, that's the only time.
That's genetics, right?
All right, your layers, epidermis. What does epi mean? Miguel, epi by itself, what does that mean?
Above?
Above. So what does epigastric mean?
Above the stomach?
So the top portion of the stomach, right? Subcu tissue. Okay, here's a question. Let's talk about burns. Let's see if you guys know. You guys might or might not know this. So if I have a 1st-degree burn, which layer is affected?
Epidermis.
If I have a 2nd-degree burn, what layer is affected?
Dermis and epidermis.
Dermis. And 3rd degree?
All 3.
All tedious layers.
Now, in more advanced books, as you guys progress, you guys will hear of a 4th-degree burn. What is a 4th-degree burn?
Internal?
All the way down to the bone. That's all the way down to the burn. If you get to paramedic or nursing, that's where you'll start learning about that. That's degree. Okay, what if let's talk about wounds now. What if I have a superficial wound? What does that mean? So that's the dermis being affected, right? What about a partial thickness wound? Partial thickness.
It must be 2 layers.
2 layers. Full thickness?
All
All the way through. Here are your layers. So technically, I guess there are 4 layers, but that 4th layer, that is all dead skin cells. That's all that is. These are your live skin cells, dermis, and your subcu tissue. And here is where the vessels will dilate to radiate your heat off. So now we're going to closed wounds, like 5 minutes. All right, so closed wounds is pretty easy. That means there was the impact, but the skin is intact, right? So if the skin is intact, Mia, when you hit Manuel with the baseball bat the other day.
He loves it. Your life in danger.
He is right. When you hit with the baseball bat, let's say that force wasn't enough to lacerate or break the skin because you don't do upper body. You just squat. Do you think though, was that significant? Would that possibly be enough force, even though it didn't break the skin? Could that be significant enough to still damage the liver and cause bleeding internally? Why? Can you walk me through why in your brain? No? All right, so energy is not destroyed. Energy is transferred. You guys know about that, right?
Yes.
All right. So we'll say that this is his abdomen, and then baseball bat was right here, right? Force went here. We'll say his liver is in the back. So even though the baseball bat stopped right here, that force is gonna continue. It's gonna continue, it's gonna continue, it's gonna continue. It's gonna go down to the cell level. So it might be enough to cause a tear, which can start producing bleeding. So let's say that you come across a patient that was in a car accident. You find him, MOI, this is your MOI. MOI is car seat, right? Steering wheel, patient is slumped over the steering wheel. So you find them slumped over the steering wheel. That is your MOI as you approach the patient. Now, let's say the patient kind of comes to. You get them out of the vehicle or they walk out by themselves as you're approaching. They are mentally altered. But based off the MOI that you've seen before they got out of that vehicle, what are you going to look for? What are you going to look for, Miguel? Based off this MOI, what are you going to look for specifically on this patient? There's two things that I would look at. Sites of impact.
So the head, if it hit the windshield, and the chest because it made contact with the steering wheel.
Okay, so now, Nate, this patient, you check that, you see significant bruising over the epigastric region. You don't see any head trauma at all. Patient is mentally altered. What are you going to suspect the reason for them being mentally altered is?
So, some type of swelling somewhere, either to his head or maybe.
So there was no head trauma, so we rolled that out, there was nothing.
Okay.
The head was good, but we did find bruising on the epigastric region. What's gonna cause somebody to be mentally altered?
Maybe, what's it called, it broke something and it is leading into his shock.
So the patient is bleeding out. Every time we come across a trauma patient, they were in an obvious trauma situation, skin's intact, and they are mentally altered with no head trauma, we're always going to assume internal bleeding.
So they're going into hypovolemic shock?
Exactly. And yeah, internally, they're going into hypovolemic shock. And obviously, if they're bleeding out inside their body, that blood is being transferred from the vascular system out into the space of the body. So then what do we not have enough of in the vascular system to supply the tissue, the brain that's being mentally altered? We don't have enough red blood cells, right? They're being spilled down to the abdomen region. So that we don't have enough red blood cells in the bloodstream to carry that oxygen to the brain to make ATP, which is causing the mental status to change. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.